Hey guys, it's Kaylee from K-Books and this is my wrap-up post for March and April. So last month I only read 4 or 5 books and I just really did not have the time to post a vlog. So I decided that I would do a double post this month. But I did read a lot of books this month, so it is going to be quite a long video. So I'm going to start with the books that I read in March. And the first one that I read is Fire and Flood by Victoria Scott. This is the first book in the Fire and Flood series. I love this cover, it's beautiful. I gave this book 2 stars. I was really quite disappointed in it. I was really looking forward to it. I've read Victoria Scott's other series and absolutely loved it. But this one fell a bit flat for me. I was really looking forward to it because it's dystopia and I adore dystopia books. But I don't know, it was just, the character really irritated me and she was really sort of bitchy and selfish, and if I don't like the main character, then I really just don't like the book. And I think that's what happened with this one. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I will pick up the second in the series. I will see how I feel sort of nearer to the time when the second one's coming out, but the one redeeming factor in this is that it's quite original with the Pandoras. If you've read it, you know what I mean. And that's the only sort of thing that kept me going to finish the book. So I wasn't such a huge fan of Fire and Flood. And the next book I read is Camp Payback by J.K. Rowling. This is the second book in the Camp Boyfriend series. And this is a young adult contemporary series. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one. The main character from the first one really isn't in Camp Payback, and I really kind of missed that because I really liked the original character, and I just have a major issue with the friendships in this series because the friends, they're supposed to be these really close friendship group that meet at summer camp, and they're just really bitchy and betrayal and betray each other, and I just don't understand why they're friends. So that's a problem I have with this book. But apart from that, I did really enjoy this one. The next one I read is Tremble by Jus Ocado. This is the 3rd book in the Denizen series, and I gave this one 5 stars. I loved Tremble. For the most part, I was going to give it 4 stars because I really didn't like it as much as the others. Something happened at the end of the second one to which sort of shocked everybody, I think. And then in this one, it sort of went to, there was so much time that it took for it to fix what had happened in the second one that I found it a lot slower than the others and I couldn't get into it as much. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this one as much, but sort of the ending did bring it up and I absolutely loved the ending. So yeah, this still got 5 stars. The next book I read, I have a paperback, so I'm going to show you the paperback, but I actually listened to this on audio. In March, it was the month that I really started listening to audiobooks. Because of work and things, I just don't have as much time to read anymore. So when someone sort of said that audiobooks were really good and they started enjoying audiobooks, I thought that I would try them, and this was the first one that I tried out. So I listened to The Golden Lily by Richelle Mead, and I gave this 5 stars. This is the 2nd book in the Bloodlines series, which is the spin-off series from Vampire Academy. I really loved it. I love this series. I love Richelle Mead's writing. I love everything about it. The narrator was extremely good. I had a few issues because sometimes when she put on Adrian's voice, it just sounded a little bit stupid and weird. But apart from that, this book was amazing. I loved it. And the last one that I read was also an audiobook, but I do have a paperback. And it was The Indigo Spell by Richelle Mead, which is the 3rd book in the Bloodlines series. This is the only vampire series that I actually still enjoy. It's completely gone off. I find that vampire series are completely overdone. And this series and Rachel Cain's Morganville vampire series are actually the only two that I still actually enjoy reading. The others I've sort of gone off. I would have gone on to book 4 in this, but it's not actually available yet on Audible UK, so I'm waiting for that to become available in my country before I get the audio of book 4, so I can continue this series. So that's all for March, so I'm going to go on to the books that I read in April. So the first one, these were all audios. Well, the first 5 that I'm going to show you were all audios. And it was A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I've had these paperback books for so long and I have never started them because look how thick they are. They are massive. And the writing is actually really small, so the books are even bigger than you would think. So I decided that I was going to get them on audio because A Game of Thrones is like my favourite series ever. I absolutely adore it. And I just really, really wanted to get through the books. So I listened to them on audio. The narrator is incredible. A Game of Thrones was amazing. I gave it 4 stars. The reason it wasn't 5 is season 1 of Game of Thrones sticks extremely close to this book. So I kind of knew everything. It was kind of a little bit boring because I knew everything. And because you have all of the world building in this, it's incredibly slow to get into. So that's why I gave it 4 instead of 5. The next one I listened to was A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin, which is book 2 in A Song of Ice and Fire series. I gave this one 5 stars. It was amazing. Although I already knew what was going to happen because I'd seen season 2 of the show, I actually find that watching the show first helped me get my head around the amount of characters, because there's like 20 characters or something that you get the point of view of. I found this better than the first one because we didn't have the extremely long part of the world building and things. We already were in the world, we already knew what the world was like, so it definitely sped that up a bit, even though it's massive. The next one is A Storm of Swords. It's split into 2 parts of the paperback, but I listened to the audio, so it was just one. This is book 3 of the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R.R. Martin, and I gave it 5 stars. I'm purposely not going to actually say anything about the plot or anything like that, because I know a lot of people who follow me watch the show but haven't read the books because they don't want to spoil it, so I refuse to spoil it. But yeah, book 3 I listened to, and that got 5 stars. A Feast for Crows, which is book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, and I give this one 4 stars. Also listened to, as you've probably guessed it by now, A Dance with Dragons, which is book 5 of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. This one got 5 stars. It was amazing. The reason that A Feast for Crows got a star less is not only was it slow, but A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons run parallel to each other. And this is sort of all of the people in the north, so this is sort of Cersei and all of them, and following everyone, sorry, down south, not in the north. So this was Cersei and everyone in King's Landing and things like that, and I really, really missed reading about Jon Snow and the Starks and Daenerys, who's my favourite character, so that's why it got 4 stars, because it was just a little bit less for me. This one was amazing because all of my favourite characters were here. We had Daenerys, we had, well, everyone. We had Tyrion, who was my other favourite character, and Jon Snow, and all of those. So I absolutely loved A Dance with Dragons. My only issue now is that book 6 hasn't been published, and I really, really want it, like, right now. So, the next one I read, I don't have a paperback copy because it is an ebook, and it was Read at Night by Katie McGarry. This I gave 5 stars. I love Katie McGarry. I've read all of her stuff, and this is a novella that is separate to the Pushing the Limits series, but it's sort of set in the same sort of town and universe, and we see sort of Mrs. Collins and things like that. So I did really enjoy that. It was really good. The next book I read was Everbound by April Lynn Pike, and this is the first in a new young adult paranormal series. I haven't read anything by April Lynn Pike before, and I just sort of happened to come across this one by chance. And I actually really loved it. I'd heard mixed things about her other series, which is the Wings series, so I haven't read that. But reading Everbound and loving it as much as I did, then I kind of want to go back. I gave it 5 stars. It was really good. It's a really good story. It's got a little bit of mystery in there, so as you're reading, you're sort of wondering what's going to have happened previously in the past and things like that, so I really loved that one. The next one was also an ebook, and it was Relic by Renee Collins. I gave this one 5 stars. I believe she's working on a sequel, but I'm not sure. This was a really interesting read for me. It was one of the sort of books that I picked up and I didn't think I'd love it quite as much as I did. It's completely addictive. It's completely new and fresh and unique, and it's sort of about magic, but it comes from sort of magic from bones of other animals. So like they have like relics from like a unicorn bone that has the power from a unicorn in and things like that. So I thought it was really, really interesting and really different from anything I'd ever read before, and that's what made me love it so much. The next one was The Falconer by Elizabeth May. This book I had tried to read previously, okay, and I knew that it's a book that I would love, but I ended up putting it down because I just wasn't sort of in the mood for that type of book, and I finally decided that I would pick it back up. It's amazing. It's so good. This is one of my favourite books ever. It has everything. It has fairies, it has demons, it has everything. Everything you could possibly want. It's kind of a steampunk book. It's set in a steampunk era. And what I love is that she's like a debutante by day, and then she hunts fairies, evil fairies, by night. And it's just so good. So if you haven't read this already, this is a UK YA book, and I am trying to read more UK YA books. And this was one of the first that I read, and it's just amazing. It's just so good. I can't wait for the sequel. I just know it's going to be amazing. And look at that cover. Look at that cover. It's so beautiful. I just love it. The next one, I have a paperback, but I did listen to it on audio. And it is Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is the first in the Lunar Chronicles series, and it's a fairy tale retelling of Cinderella, but it is so different. Cinderella is actually a cyborg, and this has cyborgs, it has aliens, it has just all sorts. It's insane, it's crazy, and it's amazing. It's awesome. I just loved it. I have the other two on audio on my iPod ready to listen to after the series I'm listening to now. I gave this 4 stars. I really liked it. I actually really loved it. But the ending was just a bit meh. I'd heard there was a cliffhanger, so I was completely prepared for a cliffhanger. But I didn't find the ending was very much of a cliffhanger. It was more, oh, is it over? Really? I really thought that like my audiobook had the ending cut off or something. I love that it doesn't have a typical fairy tale ending. So we're still going to see Cinder in the next book. But I didn't really think it was a cliffhanger. It just sort of stopped. And it was a little bit rushed at the end. So like when all the action-y stuff starts happening and it gets more fast-paced and I was prepared, oh, this is the cliffhanger coming up, but then it sort of slowed down and just stopped. So it was like an arc, but instead of stopping up here where it should when it's a cliffhanger, it just sort of went and fizzled out at the end, and I was just like, really? Is that the end? So that's why I knocked a star off, because of the ending. I wasn't a fan of that. But I am really looking forward to Scarlet and Cress, because I desperately need to know what happens next. The next book I read for the UKYA Readathon, and I read Geek Girl by Holly Smale. This is the first book in the Geek Girl series, and I loved this. It's so good. I felt like I was reading about me when I was at school, because I was very much a geek. And I just loved it. It's quirky, it's funny. What I love about this book is Holly's writing is incredible. Harriet, the main character, is a 15-year-old girl. She knows lots of facts, she's incredibly smart, but she doesn't understand social interactions quite as much. Not to the extent that she might be autistic or anything, but just lots of people don't like her because of how smart she is and how she sort of just spouts out random facts all the time. And what I love is that her voice was perfect. It actually sounded like a 15-year-old girl telling the story throughout the whole book. Rather than sometimes when you have young adult books, it sounds like an adult telling the story until you get to the dialogue. Geek Girl, it was like the 15-year-old was telling it right the way through, and I loved that. The next one is Suncatcher by Sheila Rance. I got this for review. It's a UKYA book, so I was reading it, and I was so looking forward to this because it's depicted as Game of Thrones for a younger audience. I DNF'd it. I was bored, it's slow, I couldn't get into it. I gave it quite a big chance, but I didn't care about the characters, and I came to realise that actually when I got to the end, if one of the characters died, I just wouldn't care. Because I just didn't really like them, I didn't connect to them, so I decided that I was actually going to DNF this book. So it sounds like it would be something I love. The blurb sounds good, but it just sort of failed a little bit. The next one I don't have because it's an ebook, and it was Dark Days by Kate Ormond. Again, this is a UKYA book. This is a young adult dystopia, and I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. What I found about Dark Days is that it's extremely different from any other young adult dystopia books. It kind of has a bit of a Hunger Games-esque to it at the beginning. Not so much that they're sort of separated into districts or anything, but just sort of the way they're living reminded me of how District 12 lived. But then it's so unique. I'm not going to sort of ruin the story, but it was literally different from anything that I had read, which I find is very, very rare in young adult dystopia, because I've read so many that now a lot of them seem to be repeating, like I found with Fire and Flood. But Dark Days was so unique, so amazing, I just loved it. The next one, I also don't have a paperback copy yet. I read it on ebook, and it was Trouble by Non Pratt. This book is possibly my favourite book of the year so far. It completely blew me away. I wanted to read it purely because I'm meeting Non Pratt in July in London, and I sort of just wanted to read her book before I met her. It's not the type of book I usually read. It's about teen pregnancy, and they are the sort of books that I usually sort of stay away from. I've got no interest in reading, but I'd heard amazing things about this one. So I decided to give it a chance, and it completely blew me away. It's my favourite book of the year. It's moving, it's touching, it's uplifting, it's just incredible. It's one of those books that will stay with you for a long time after you've read it, because the message behind it is just so amazing. I just loved it. It's my favourite book of the year without a doubt. The next one I read, I actually listened to an audiobook, is Half Bad by Sally Green. Wasn't just sad. The poor guy had nothing happy in his life. He just went from crap to crap to crap to crap, and honestly, it made me want to kill myself. I actually told my mother to hide the knife so I didn't kill myself while listening to this book, because I was so depressed. It just made me want to die. So I doubt very much that I will be reading the rest of the series because it's just so depressing. I was listening to it hoping after all of this horrible stuff there's going to be a happy ending at the end. No, there's nothing happy in that book. It was like a paranormal Les Miserables in book form. That's how I describe Half-Bad. The next one I read was a beta read, which was Brushstrokes by Janelle Stalter. This is a new adult contemporary book. It's Janelle's first contemporary book, and I honestly don't know why she's waited this long to write contemporary, because it was genuinely phenomenal. I absolutely loved Brushstrokes. I gave it 5 stars. I'm not going to say it anymore because it's not out yet, but definitely pick this one up when it releases. And the last one that I read this month, finally got to the last one, is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I read this on audio, but I have these very beautiful, very pretty paperbacks. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. It was so good. The narrator was amazing. If you don't like audiobooks, listen to this one because it will make you like audiobooks, because the narrator was phenomenal. The voices she put on for all the characters were incredible. She was just amazing. She's such an amazing narrator that I will actually go out of my way to listen to the ones that she narrates, because she was so good. This is such a unique book. It's got everything in. It's got all these different creatures, and it's set in Prague, so it's set in a nice sort of, for me, exotic, different location, somewhere more interesting than England or America, because all of the books I tend to read are set either in England or America, so to get a book that's set just somewhere completely different, I loved that, and I love the cover and how we sort of have the Prague background, and I love that. So that's it, but I'm just going to show you the book that I'm currently reading, which is Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor, the second book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. So I'm listening to this on audio. I have the third one on audiobook as well. These are special covers exclusive to Tesco, so I'm waiting for the third one to come out there so that I can have the matching covers because they're very pretty.